Breaking news to bring you. Merck CEO Kenneth Frazier is resigning from the President's American Manufacturing Council. Let me read you the statement put out just a short while ago. Our country's strength stems from its diversity and the contributions made by men and women of different faiths, races, sexual orientations, and political beliefs. America's leaders must honor our fundamental values by clearly rejecting expressions of hatred, bigotry, and group supremacy, which run counter to the American ideal that all people are created equal.
My father saw that there was a racial divide. He would tell us about when he went to, as a 47-year-old man, paid his admission to what was then called Shibe Park in Philadelphia and saw Jackie Robinson on the playing field. He said, I knew my children could do anything after that. And so his point of view was not that people weren't going to try to stop you, but he would say, the only question in life is, can you be stopped? When my father was buried, my promise was that I would tell his story, because it was his story that made my life possible, because it was his grandfather who saw the future enough to send him north. And as a result of that, he saw the future enough to demand that I get an education. And my life is the way it is because of what those two men believed was possible. I sit here now in the job of CEO of Merck, and I know that I trace that back to the fact that I was assigned to a Merck case as a first-year associate. And I remember my job was to get some aspect of the trial stuff ready, and we were all sitting around talking about what was going to happen at the trial. And I had the temerity to say that I'd like to try the case, and they all looked down the table at me because I'm this kid and I've only been there a year at most, and they all thought it was amusing. And the most senior partner in the room, Bob Ryan was his name, he saw that I was serious. And after all the laughter happened and people were drifting away and picking up their papers, he called me over and he said, Kenny, they all called me Kenny, what I want you to do is this weekend I want you to go home and I want you to pretend like you're going to try this case, and I want you to come in here Monday into my office and tell me what your opening argument would be. I remember I went home and I worked all that weekend. And I came in and I did my opening statement for him. And he called the partner that was going to try the case in. And then they called the general counsel of Merck. I can still remember this like yesterday, and they were yucking it up. This young feller wants to try this case. He said feller. I remember it like it was yesterday. And the general counsel of Merck was on the speakerphone. He said, well, why not give him a chance? Bottom line, the reason I eventually became general counsel of Merck was because I had that direct connection with that general counsel when I was a young person.
Merck says its board of directors has elected Kenneth Frazier, currently Merck's president, as chief executive officer and president, as well as a member of the board, effective January 1st, 2011.
I've never been a person to feel glad that I got somewhere. My wife always says you don't enjoy anything because you're always on to the next thing. So when I became CEO, I was worried about whether or not I could run this company in a way that I would make a very satisfactory mark as CEO. I knew I felt really good when, I can't lie, when the announcement came out and I looked at it and I realized I'm the CEO of Merck and my father had a third grade education and was a janitor. I felt really good about that. My family felt really good about that. But I really am honest when I say that I think my overwhelming feeling was a feeling of huge, awesome responsibility. It's my job to do what's in the long-term best interest of this company.
We're seeing two health companies, each with over 130 years of experience, coming together to help write a more hopeful chapter in our battle against COVID-19.
Now, some observers may view this corporate partnership as the coming together of rivals. But in these extraordinary times, we are colleagues, not competitors. And when there's unrest, people put out statements, they put out platitudes. They say, this is terrible, we decry racism, we believe that we ought to build a just society. I think business has to go beyond what is required here. You know, I get to sit on CNBC and have this conversation with you because of one fundamental reason, and that was when I was growing up in the inner city of Philadelphia, the social engineers in Philadelphia, at the time when Dr. King was leading the protests in the 1960s, for reasons I don't yet understand, decided to take a few inner city black kids, put them on a bus, make them ride 90 minutes to different schools. I know for sure that what put my life on a different trajectory was that someone intervened to give me an opportunity to close that opportunity gap.
This does appear to be the first time a group of leaders of your prominence have come together on an issue like this in such a forceful way.
We all know the right to vote is fundamental. But for African Americans, they had to earn the right to vote.
What have your conversations been with your peers, not just in this group, but across the country around this topic?
I've had some conversations. I think people are trying to get their heads around it, and I think it's important at the outset for people to understand what's wrong with this law. My fundamental issue is education, and I'd like to do something that actually helped our society do a better job of educating children, particularly disadvantaged children. I think one of the great lies of our society is that children are constrained by the circumstances that they are born and raised in. I happen to think that the solution to poverty is education. It's a 26-year-old private inner-city Christian school. These kids live in environments of huge deprivation and chaos. And if you put them in an environment where they're safe and where high academic standards are expected, they can perform to those standards. And I'm proud to say that kids have been admitted to Yale, Stanford, Swarthmore, among other places.